Halloween was always Emily Johnson's favorite time of year, the season of eerie decorations and spooky traditions, but nothing prepared her for the horror that came when her brother Ryan gifted her a Labubu doll alongside a carved pumpkin he had found at a roadside stand. An odd combination that at first made her laugh, but later became the center of a nightmare no one could explain. The doll, with its mischievous grin and wide glowing eyes, sat on her desk beside the pumpkin that seemed to rot faster than normal, its carved face curling into a sinister expression within days. And though she tried to brush it off as the natural decay of a jack-o'-lantern, strange events began happening every night at exactly 3 a.m. Scratching sounds from the closet, faint giggles drifting through the apartment, and once even the flicker of orange light inside the pumpkin long after the candle had burned out. Emily told herself she was just stressed from school, but the more she ignored it, the worse it got. Until one night she awoke to find the Labubu doll sitting on her chest and the pumpkin glowing on its own, its grin twisted wider than she remembered, as if the two objects shared a secret she wasn't meant to know. And in that moment a whisper filled the room. "Play with us, Emily." Her heart pounded as she shoved the doll across the room and covered the pumpkin with a blanket. But by morning the doll was back on her pillow and the pumpkin sat in the middle of the floor seeds and pulp, spilling out like intestines. Terrified, she researched online and stumbled across a chilling legend. A story from East Asia that claimed the Labubu doll was inspired by a spirit that feeds on fear, one that sometimes bonds with cursed objects to grow stronger, and pumpkins carved for protection during Halloween could become gateways if tainted by evil. Suddenly, everything made sense. The doll wasn't just cursed, it had found an anchor in the pumpkin, a vessel to amplify its presence. That night, Emily tried to destroy them, smashing the pumpkin into pieces and throwing the doll into a trash bag. But at 3:12 a.m., the scratching came again, louder, almost angry, and the smell of rotting pumpkin filled the apartment, making her gag. The lights flickered and she heard footsteps in the kitchen. When she crept in with trembling hands gripping a kitchen knife, she froze. On the counter sat the Labubu doll, its glassy eyes glowing orange like embers, and beside it the pumpkin had reformed itself, its jagged grin lit from within by an otherworldly flame. Emily screamed, but the apartment door slammed shut, trapping her inside, and then came the laughter. High-pitched giggles layered with deeper guttural tones, echoing off the walls until she dropped the knife and clutched her ears. The doll tilted its head and whispered again, "Emily, stay with us forever." Shadows stretched across the walls, twisting into shapes of tiny hands and sharp teeth, and the pumpkin split open, spilling out black smoke that slithered across the floor like snakes. Emily ran to her room and tried to barricade the door, but the smoke seeped through the cracks, cold and suffocating, while the doll's giggles grew closer. She grabbed her phone, dialing Ryan, but the call failed, the screen flickering before going dark. In a final act of desperation, she threw the doll and the pumpkin remnants out of her third-story window. But when she turned around, both objects were back inside, sitting neatly on her bed as if they had never moved. She felt her body go weak, her vision blurring, and the last thing she saw before blacking out was the Labubu doll crawling closer, climbing onto her chest, its glowing eyes burning into hers, while the pumpkin pulsed with a heartbeat-like rhythm, as if alive. The next morning, Ryan arrived after Emily failed to answer calls, and what he found chilled him forever. The apartment was trashed, the smell of rot heavy in the air, but Emily was gone without a trace. On her bed sat the Labubu doll, perfectly upright, and beside it a pumpkin, freshly carved with a wide, malicious grin, even though Halloween had passed weeks ago. Ryan swore he saw the doll's head turn slightly toward him as he entered, and the pumpkin's carved mouth seemed to twitch, almost like it was smiling at him, daring him to stay. He backed out of the apartment, locked the door, and never spoke about what happened. But neighbors whispered about strange sounds coming from inside, giggles, scratching, and at night the faint glow of a pumpkin face staring from the window. To this day, no one knows where Emily went, But the story of the Labubu doll and the cursed pumpkin has spread online, with some collectors claiming that if you place a Labubu doll near a jack-o'-lantern, it may awaken something best left alone. So the next time you carve a pumpkin for Halloween, be careful what sits beside it. Because if you hear scratching at 3 a.m. or see your pumpkin grinning wider than before, it might not just be your imagination. It could be the doll choosing you as its next owner, and once it does, there's no escape. Only the giggles in the dark and the glow of the pumpkin that never goes out.